Hello. Uh, well, on the news today, there's this thing about Chris Christie being like the hottest guy in the Republican Party or something like that. And I feel like that is like, this is an example of like maybe, I don't want to I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but like not thinking things out enough, right? Because what's going on is like Chris Christie started getting, say, like negative the way that people were attacking Chris Christie for being on the opposite side of the fence of Ron Paul is to sort of attack his weight. And so there's like stuff going out there saying like, he's they're saying get in my belly, similar to the guy from Austin Powers, and possibly possibly like raised concerns. They were probably like, oh, that's bad, that's mean, Chris Christie doesn't deserve to be attacked in that way. So I guess I just sort of made up this poll or whatever. I mean, it may even be true, but I'm just saying that. Look at the timing, and there may have even been concerns like, oh, is he going to kill himself or something, or is that going to cause too much inflammation between the Libertarians and the Republicans if everyone just starts harping on Chris Christie or something like that? So obviously that was a way of placating Chris Christie somehow. It's like the day before, it's like Rand Paul challenges Chris Christie to or invites him out to get a beer, and then everybody starts ragging on Chris Christie in the alternative media as being like this big fat dude. And then all of a sudden, the next day, it's like Chris Christie voted the most, attractive Republican. This is just weird. Isn't that weird? Okay, let me bring up the thing to look at y'all's to look at the comments. It's really weird right now because there's no rain. There's no rain going on, and yet it is thundering and lightning really badly. So that's weird. What else is on the news today that we can comment on? They're still talking about the departure of the Americans from the Middle East. It is entirely possible that there is a coordinated attack that's going to take place by the cabal, which would be, say, CIA, shadow government, CIA-funded Al-Qaeda rebels, Saudi Arabian and Israeli attacks on the Shias. Uno second. I am sorry. Honestly, there's just not much to talk about, There's actually like a shit ton to talk about, but the problem is I feel like I hope that, because it feels weird, it feels like I can't tell what the mindset of string pullers are. On the one hand, they could be wise. I'm sure that they hold themselves in such a regard as being wise. On the other hand, they could be childlike, and childlike would mean like they get off on, trying to make you think they're wise, so to speak. And so what happens is, if I predict, if I say something like, they're going to gear up for a false flag, and the white hats are going to stop it before it happens, then something that would be good like that would simply not happen. Am I saying that's going to happen? No. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But that's an example of something good that could possibly be in the plans, that if I predict it or I make a big hoopla about it, it will not be effective. So, you know, because of the fact that I can't tell who's who and who's doing what, I don't like to sort of involve myself into that narrative, because I just simply can't. I'm not aware of enough of the variables to determine what is going on. And so I could sit here and engage in conspiracy theory, but you know, is this productive in a sense? And it's just not. I can't tell if it is or if it isn't. It is hot, and I put this jacket on because I only have this wife beater basically, and I don't want to wear a wife beater by itself on the show. And all my shirts are in a laundry basket in my car, and I forgot to bring it up because I thought they were going to use some sort of lightning weapon on me, and I ran into the apartment really fast. I'm serious. There's like lightning happening so close that it like makes you jump, and then you hear the blast, and there's no rain. So that's just really weird. It's like we're getting solar wind phenomenon or something like that going on right now. So let's go down the wall for topics. I said I don't advocate anarchy, and I guess I don't even advocate libertarianism. You know, in a way, I'm kind of like, those things are better than what we got right now. But so I said we can deal with that later. I just know what they've been doing, and I want to stop it. So that was my original thing. I didn't even know, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know what it was to say protect the Constitution. I wasn't even fully aware. I knew that there were like, it was giving me rights. I didn't know to what extent those rights were being violated. I was probably like a normal sheeple class citizen who was aware of a 9/11 conspiracy. Okay, so they were actually counting on that contingent. They were like, there's going to be this, we're going to be on the side, because when you look at, you know, who was championing the 9/11 conspiracies and stuff like that, outside of the architects and engineers, there was an attempt to get on the side of the resistance, which was not, which would have turned into this Occupy Wall Street type resistance, because they would have made, okay, because what they were heading, where they were going, was, okay, 9/11 was a conspiracy. Bush and the oil, Saudi Arabian oil, that's what was behind the conspiracy. They put Obama into office because Obama's like this super loyal guy to the Saudi Arabian royalty. And there's this vast Islamic conspiracy. And then it started becoming extremely apparent that the Israelis and the Saudi Arabians had the same interests. And the Saudi Arabians became kind of very powerful. And it also started becoming apparent, like, wow, we're really getting away with a lot. That's what they're thinking. They started thinking, like, this is amazing just how easily, like, corruptible people are. They didn't even have to pull off this co-opting the conspiracy theorist thing, but they had it as a fail-safe, and they weren't expecting to pull the fail-safe when they did, so things got really haywire. And a lot of us, actually Ron Paul had a lot to do with Um, why the fail-safe got pulled as an emergency when it did, and then also the level to which it was blowback to such an extent that the fail-safe failed. The fail-safe, in my opinion, failed, and so now they're not issuing in communism. Now they're not issuing in globalism. Now they're not issuing in this, you know, green paradise or whatever. Instead, everything has gone full-blown pro-constitution, which makes further conspiracy very difficult. You know, there's just a general sense in which the good, what you could have gotten good out of the conspiracy appears to be coming out, and there's not that much piggybacking of agenda going on, which, you know, there may still be an agenda there, and that's really important, but I don't know that the agenda is still there simply because of how infeasible it is at this point to implement it, or even that you would want to, or even if you tried, there would be massive blowback. See, the thing is that I'm operating like I'm operating on this I am operating. Hold on one second. I have to take this off, guys. I'm sorry. So they would have done this like redistribute the income thing. See, stuff blew back to such an extent that it went against the central banking system and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to your comments, and unfortunately last night the comments like did not come in. They did not come in by the time I hung up. So I don't know, like there were all these comments and then I ended up hanging up on you guys. Oh my god, it's so hot. It's 71 degrees in my apartment, but it's still hot. I'm still sweating. I'm getting hyper conscious. Alright, let's just keep going. Justin Bieber wears a Guy Fawkes mask. Do I know the details here? No. Let's take a look. It says Anonymous targets Justin Bieber for wearing Guy Fawkes mask. Why is Anonymous targeting Justin Bieber? In fact, I don't, you know, I love what Anonymous has done or what Anonymous stands for, but I would rather, like, divorce the Guy Fawkes mask from Anonymous. Because at some point, Anonymous could be not good or, you know, become an operation in and of itself, and you would sort of, like, want to not screw up the Guy Fawkes mask, because then all of a sudden the Guy Fawkes mask is, you know, because just how many hacktivists are there? Hacking, like there's basically like people on the inside. Did it freeze up right then? It sure did. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is like if we divorce the Guy Fawkes mask from, say, Anonymous, then at least the Guy Fawkes mask becomes like a symbol of general conspiracy theory, which is actually good, or general resistance. And that's better than, say, associating it with Anonymous. Anyway, apparently he's wearing the mask. Wednesday night, he showed up in New York wearing the Guy Fawkes mask. It just like decided to. I'm not getting targeted by Anonymous right now because I don't think that there's hackers and they're upset about that or something. If somebody could just generally explain to me how, say, hacking actually works, then I'm not saying that you can't hack. It's just very odd to me how I think that there's a lot more social hacking involved. In other words, getting somebody to sort of download the file, or because I just don't understand how you penetrate, how you use information to influence a computer's behavior without getting the user to actually like download something. But hey, maybe it's possible. Is everybody? All right. Well, anyway, let's go and read this. So, Uber has made a mockery of Anonymous. He's making a mockery of Anonymous? Let's see why Justin Bieber was wearing the Guy Fawkes mask. He's not making fun of Anonymous, according to Examiner.com. Justin Bieber supports Anonymous with Guy Fawkes mask. Pop star Justin Bieber signaled his support for the international internet hacktivist collective known as Anonymous by donning a Guy Fawkes mask. Now, here's what you don't want to do. You do not want to target Justin Bieber because, you see, Justin Bieber has control over a lot of up-and-coming youth, specifically of the female genre, and for him to support Anonymous is just a massive penetration into the sheeple mindset. So if Anonymous is listening, it would be my, it depends on what he was really doing. Because I don't understand why he has the mask on. But let me tell you, like, that sort of stuff is so blowbacky, there's no way he did not get an okay to do that. A universal symbol of protest, an international symbol of hope and justice. The Guy Fawkes mask is a celebrated internet meme that is inextricable from the phenomenon that is Anonymous, the nebulous and notorious international internet hacktivist collective that fights for justice. Anonymous is notorious. This is great. Look at this. Anonymous is notorious for targeting such villains as the Church of Scientology, government agencies of the U.S., Israel, Tunisia, Uganda, and others, child pornography sites, blah, 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 blah. Very good. So, yeah, it's highly possible that the Anonymous that you see targeting Justin Bieber is not the Anonymous or something. Whatever. Maybe I shouldn't be hating on Anonymous. I don't really want to hate on Anonymous because I know that what's going on. Well, I concern myself with potential controlled opposition sort of things, right? Everybody should. But at this point, I think what was or were controlled opposition has just caused so much blowback to the point that now they're no longer, say, controlled opposition. They are, in fact, opposition. in a real sense, you know, like they can't, there may no longer be that, you know, they could pop in, you could just pop in there and all of a sudden then they start getting, you know, there's a reversal of what they're doing. Okay, the person that, have you read R.A. Dickey's biography? It's a good book. Also Bill Bryson's A Short History of Everything. Do you like the Detroit Tigers? Can you play music in the background too, like blurred lines, or yeah? And what's the topic about? Why, Baseball Smashers, do you want me to call people, prank call people and play music in the background? It's like, apparently that is how I will get my channel taken down. Block by well, that's awesome. Leave a comment and tell me what you guys think about the impact. Actually, let's go to Justin Bieber's Twitter real quick. Oh, wait. Justin Bieber, Guy Fawkes mask. Man. Justin Bieber's Guy Fawkes mask spurs anonymous parodies. Yeah, I just don't think it's a good idea to attack him right now. Because if anything, you want conspiracy theory to go trending, right? And I'm starting to get this sense that people know something about me or about the way things are going that I'm being left out in the loop on, and instead I get to engage in the theoretical aspect of things, of which there has still not been any concrete confirmation that I'm not on just some crazy tangent, you know. That's interesting. So this page called Rothschild Zionism says, by the year 1786, the German city of Frankfurt was the official headquarters of Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Order of the Illuminate. Trained as a Roman Catholic Jesuit, Adam Weishaupt became a protege of Ignacio Lopez de Loyola, 1491 to 1556, the founder of the Society of Jesus, who are known today as the Jesuits. I want to go see if it's finally raining out there. I'll be right back. Is it raining yet? well, it's finally raining as opposed to not raining and thundering and lightning causing me to think I was going to get assassinated by some sort of weaponized lightning or something like that. I'll be honest with you, if it's, even though I legitimately think that they did target me, like, for the heart attack gun, which should tell you right there was not a popular move. It was not popular. I don't think it was even popular what they did in Aurora. But, you know, when that happened and those sequence of events, if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out that video. I think I survived the heart attack gun. Basically, specifically the people that were involved, the way it was done, and the quality of the van led me to believe that this was a totally foreign operation. They were foreigners. That's what I thought when I saw them. I was like, looks like these people are from the university. Like somehow, you know, they weren't well kempt enough to be, say, like an intellectual or whatever sort of professor or something like that. But my initial instinct was these two guys are foreigners. So maybe they're from the university. Like I thought they were tourists, you know, or something like that. And then, you know, the events occurred as they occurred. And I just wish I would have known what country they were from. So they could have been Israelis, but I'll be honest with you, the way that their skin tone was indicated to me that they might have been Saudi Arabians. Because I actually one of my roommates was a Saudi Arabian one time. And we didn't see much of him. He was very nice, and he actually, like, because on the Ramadan or whatever, like, they have to eat at nightfall, I think. And he ordered these pizzas, and we all just kind of waited around until it was nighttime. And then we ate pizzas with him. But he was you know, he was inside a lot, so I got to see what a Saudi Arabian man looked like, you know, and by that I mean, like, you know, because they have darker complexions, and but, you know, he was inside all the time, so it gave a certain sort of, like, complexion, and that's what I would say these guys look like, which were like, you know, swarthy, but they never had any sun. That's what I thought of them when I saw them. But could that have been Israeli? Sure. But my gut was telling me that these were not Israelis, that they were Saudi Arabians upon reflection. And the individual just from the Saudi Arabian, I knew that was a roommate one time. Then you have to wonder who orders the hit, you know? Like, who's like, take out Thomas Brinkley? Because it must have been not popular. Maybe not even with the top. It could have been coming from somebody with special interests at the top. But it was so hashed that I think that the, like, super bad guys were operating in a very barely holding it together way. And they had been doing that for some time. And I feel like that is what's being attacked right now. So there is that sort of sect, S-E-C-T, of the power structure which had these ambitions of global Zionism, or a Zionist empire. Saudi Arabia not wanting to like get patsied and stuff like that, and they were kind of going rogue. Now we see Hillary Clinton basically trying to like run, but that is so weird. It's almost a way of goading the Republicans or the Libertarians into being like absolutely abhorred by the idea of somebody being so incompetent or inept that that it's being engineered to sort of like cause people to want to reject the idea of a Hillary Clinton run, or maybe set up as some sort of a trap or negative stimulus, like, oh my God, if we don't get somebody in office that can beat Hillary, then we're going to be stuck with, like, basically America's going to go down the toilet. And if things would have been heading the way that they were heading, there would just not be a 2016. Even the people in the Ron Paul movement were kind of like, there's always 2016, and even now, like, luckily, Cavuto or whatever, he was like, are you serious? We're gonna have to wait till 2016 to fix some of these problems? And it's like, no. In fact, my timetable is like a week. Like, I could probably fix all the problems in a week. It's all about the narrative. It's all about who is in control of the cool, who is in control of my story, the one that is featured on my homepage, is so gripping that you could piggyback absolutely anything you want onto my story. And yet I'm here, possibly getting tailed by people. Nevertheless, I probably just got myself black bagged yet again. But that's right. It's supercharged, and I purposely made it that way. I turned my life into this massive ball of potential and blowback. And then if they give me the narrative, then I could have massive social change, basically. Yeah, I'm on Craigslist, trying to find a better way to slave my shit out there. Take a look at the comments. Froze up again, huh? Laughinghead says, I fucking hate Bieber. Can't stand that dude. LOL. Yeah. Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of girls like him. A lot of these Disney watching people that will... I feel so bad for the younger generations because they're literally getting raised on porn, basically. And maybe not the youngest generations. Like, the youngest generations will I think, become more mature and not want to look at that stuff or want that. They'll like reject it and be the total opposite of it. But the generation that's like in college and in high school right now are totally raised on the values, which are none, inherently in porn, basically. And that group of people, you could probably plan ahead with them and kind of like expect what they're going to do, what they're going to be into, and I would expect that they might have this, they might champion a sort of rebellion against that, to sort of branch off in this new way of like, you know, non-materialism. That's possible. I could see that sort of like trending with their generation. Anyway, the Bieber generation. Heavily influenced, so to see him put on that mask is actually a very good thing. Fortunately, he has like the owl tat and stuff like that, but there does seem to be an alliance right now between the Masons and the conspiracy theorists. Like a, well, when I say Masons, I'm just talking about, you know, the founders' version of the Masons, which was always there, but they've been woken up or something. Okay, there's a big old bug in here. Okay. Do you think the truthers on YouTube have made things harder for this government to get away with their crap as easy as they did on 9/11? Yeah, I cannot express enough. Very good job, Shucksful. The impact that, you know, YouTube is very blowbacky, but I think they've put programs in place now that would make it very difficult to infect the narrative using YouTube. However, Facebook, in conjunction with YouTube, because now YouTube is just useful for production quality, basically you make videos, but Facebook is also a very instrumental tool in fixing things. But also YouTube is, I'm a little bit worried because it does seem like they're attacking alternative media and keeping alive certain outlets of alternative media, because alternative media is about to become the mainstream narrative. And so you must understand that the, you know, I just want to say I called all of this. I called it all before it was even happening. And there's like, if you wanted to like understand the truth, it's also a question of whether or not you really, you know, because what ends up happening is you start to like the conspiracy, basically, because suddenly it's sort of like heading in a good way, and it's done so in such a way. Like, could you imagine the sort of fallout that would occur if you were to like suddenly reveal something super bombshell? It would basically cause a bunch of people, which I kind of like. You know, I'm not somebody that disagrees with the what's known as chaos or whatever. But you know, in general, you don't want chaos. Why? Because you've got a grandma in the hospital who requires, a nurse to come to work and do her job, So, you know, yes, you'll end up getting some justice, but, at what price? At what cost? You don't want your grandma to pass away in the nursing home because things went to shit and basically the medical supplies didn't arrive that day, or the nurse didn't show up, or the food didn't get delivered to the grocery store, and basically a huge breakdown of the economy. So you have to like transition things in a way which is slow, but that always comes with its own risks, because in that sort of compromising way, we run the risk of protecting the institution, which was abducting children and torturing the children, which warrants a, so, in an ideal way, you might think that there's a transition. But, you'd have multiple tiers. So in the most ideal sense, there's a transition. In the somewhat ideal sense, there's an invisible struggle, like an invisible war going on between, say, remnants of the old way and the Olympians or the new way, who is combating the old way, which is, I think, kind of the way we have to think. Does that make sense? Because for us to even succeed, even in the ideal sense, we have to maintain this disposition that it's a struggle. Does that make sense? And let me read what you said again, because it's a good question. You said, do you think the truthers on YouTube have made things harder for the government to get away with their crab disease? Yeah, so what's going on now is that if any operation, like the operation is the operation. So in other words, an operation takes place, and then you plan off of the conspiracy theory. So that was not there at first. To some extent it was, but not to the extent that it is now. So in other words, an operation will occur, and you have to expect a certain amount of alternative media to that operation. And that's what you are gaming off of. And that's if they want to do that. Now, the operations could still occur, and it will just have major blowback. So, like, the operation will occur, and I would expect something like the Israelis to do that, because the Israelis are just super brash, always like barging their way through things, and the way that they do operations are very like dim-witted, basically. Steve Simmons said he should skip Anon and go straight to Ben Swan. LOL. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. If you're going to watch the celebrities start wanting to be one of us, let it happen. Let it do it. Because when everything gets laid out on the table, because a lot of people are going to be like, oh, they're just jumping on the bandwagon. And even back in the day, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, like, be vocal about conspiracy theories, because I see, like, a lot of potential here. It was almost like a business investment. Dangerous ass, probably no positive stimulus involved business investment, but in a sense it was. It was kind of like, I see what's going to, like, triumph. And it's going to be this thing, this conspiracy theory subculture. And it needed to be that. It needed to be a subculture in my mind. I appreciate the people that are, still sort of working within the system, so to speak. But No, you want to deviate from the standard. You want to deviate from the norm. You want to have an entire subculture that gets everybody, the reptilian people, the alien people, the whatever, and you want to have it all right there because it's the essential quality of revisionism, of questioning authority, of just general very good virtues that are ultimately attractive. Like, as you know, as many people don't like, say, or think it's disinformation to talk about aliens, which, you know, I think that as well, but nevertheless it's a very attractive thing to talk about because it's stimulating to the intellect, and you know, you don't want to be counted among the people that contributed to such a crappy world. You want to have been like, look at what I was standing for. You know, as you can see, I was not an idiot. You know, so that was sort of what I mean by investment. It was kind of like, you know, because people are starting to think that now. It's kind of like there's a certain sense of pride in your contribution to the counter narrative. And I appreciate Steve Pachinik for coining that term for me, counter narrative. I don't know if he coined it or whatever, but I heard him use it. It's a very appropriate term. Steve Simmons says, nope, well, Skyhop says, I think the mask ordeal is like a literal version of a straw man crossed with a red herring. I love how, like, the operations in and of themselves, well, then you say intentionally drawing blowback as a goal. I love how the operational lingo kind of takes upon itself dialectic or philosophical, logistical, fallacious terms. You know, terms that people use in logic, basically. Then you understand that the entire point of these psychological operations are ultimately that, which is an intrusion of thought processes. So, you know, and I just hate how full of themselves they think they are to come up with things like this information. And they're like, ooh, this is so awesome. I have this thing which is like using rhetoric, because back in ancient Greece they basically already, it was called sophistry. And sophistry was the use of philosophy in order to sort of like promote agendas, and the real philosophers were, you know, would always hate on sophists because they thought it was like, but it raised very interesting questions, because I think they were like, they were, what's the term? There's the branches of philosophy, ethics. There's, I want to go ahead and look that up. I like remembering my terms. Branches of philosophy. It has to do with knowledge, epistemology. So they were epistemological relativists, in other words, which is actually an illogical position. But they actually believed that. They were like, things are right if I can make them right, or things are true if I can make them out to be true. And that's the essence of immoral behavior. But it's also illogical. It can be proven to be illogical. But nevertheless, the sophists were actually essentially dealing with a lot of weaponized rhetoric. And what was I saying? that they get off on thinking they're so smart, and it's like the essence of not being smart. I don't like the glorification of improper behavior. And I suppose like there's a sense in which I'm like, haha, I got you guys to think I was, haha, I got you guys to think that I was conspiring against the government or something like that, when I was saying I did things like I was talking to important people or something like that, you know, like a Ron Paul sort of revolution thing. But it was coming from outside of their known sphere, and so they were very interested. They were kind of like, who is this guy? And is he actually talking to people? Is there some sort of like a, because I was trying to freak him out. Like when I did the 2 Tampa video, I did it number one, I was trying to like unite or convert Ron Paul people into like an understanding of what essentially happened to the Ron Paul movement. But there was another thing there where I was putting in pieces to suggest that the Ron Paul movement actually stood a chance, or were going to win, that they were hiding as Romney supporters, and they were going to go there, and there was going to be this sort of like rebellion or resistance or whatever. I did that to freak him out, and it was effective, actually. It was effective. Anyway, here I am actually going back to what I was saying, which is like I don't like the glorification of improper behavior. And you see, at first they thought it was, I suppose what I don't like is the it being used on innocent people. So maybe it's not the behavior I'm worried about, but what it's for, which defeats what I was talking about. But yeah, people blindly, unabashedly supported Israel just because when you open up the Bible, it says the word Israel in there. And it's kind of like, well, here's the real history behind that thing you're thinking is Israel. And maybe your position will change if you knew that. Loppinhead says, what are your... Let me read what Skyhop said one more time. I think the mask ordeal is a literal version of a straw man crossed with a red herring. So it's a straw man, like it's showing Anonymous has a weak position, crossed with a red herring, so that you attack Beaver, even though you shouldn't, intentionally drawing blowback as a goal. Good job, Skyhop. Yeah, intentionally drawing blowback as a goal. Well, this is under the assumption that Beaver was not doing something on his own accord, that there was actually a sort of like a, you know, because the way I think they operate, especially among a lot of people that look like they're shills, is kind of like there's this friend who's an informant, and the friend goes over there and goes, hey, you should wear this, it's really cool, man. If you do it, I'm gonna whatever, you know, just something to manipulate the person. And then that happens, and it was never at any point sort of, it never entered into their mind, oh, here's why I'm doing this. But instead there was just this sort of like muse on their shoulder sort of thing. It's not hard. Like if I had the resources, it'd be very simple to pull off whatever operation I would want to. It's like kind of easy. Problem is I don't have access to resources. And normally it takes like teams of people to come up with this stuff. And even then they're like enormously ineffective at it, clamming up and stuff like that. So you have to have a certain amount of knowledge, essentially, of like coolness. Like if there's anything that maybe the CIA or power structure may lack that it should probably look into getting, which is why they kind of hire directors and stuff like that, because the directors kind of know, even if they're not cool in and of themselves, for some reason they just, as an art form, know how to. And you see a lot of, it's probably why they go for the criminal informants too, because the criminals are going to have that knowledge or that sort of emotional intelligence that's necessary for manipulating the social structure. But I'm not validating or wanting them to do that, because you can actually derive those behaviors. I mean, see, the problem is that people were originally raised well, and if you're raised well, you conduct yourself in such a way that is effective in a social sense. But if you're, and it's not like people are not being raised well, but when they're like in social, but it's not because of their parents, but maybe because of like their conditions, like maybe their peers were muscling them out of conversations or being abusive in some way, and so it caused them to sort of be stunted in their growth of, say, emotional intelligence development. And what am I talking about? What are your thoughts? Lovenhead says, what are your thoughts on the reptilian agenda? I think it's ultimately just not true, but I do wonder, because there's this theory that at some point there was an intelligent dinosaur species that may have existed, and then the intelligent dinosaur species could have gone off planet or something. I just I don't know. I don't think so. I do know that, say, humanity is relatively young, and then look at what we are kind of capable of doing. But I mean, there's been billions of years on this planet. Could some of the phenomena that we're watching occur have some sort of extraterrestrial, in a sense, or extra-human origin? Possibly, but I tend to think no, and what you're actually watching is, if you're watching something that seems supernatural, it's because you're watching basically like abstract abstract forces coming into play, because there is something to, say, just good behavior versus bad behavior. Those are abstract notions in and of themselves. Then obviously if there's bad behavior, and if bad behavior would have won, then possibly the human species would have become stagnant or been, destroyed. At which point it requires a sort of intervention of what appears to be highly synchronous events in order to, say, correct the bad behavior for good behavior. And we experience that as like miracles or say, miracles or, say, coincidences, when in fact it was actually just sort of like some very abstract, very simple abstract forces coming in, contesting each other. There's all sorts of things that could be going on that we're just not aware of. For instance, I had this whole theory of like, why are our sinuses located right here in our face? Right? Why wouldn't you just snot and produce all of your bile and mucus right there at your butthole area? That way you can just like sit down and shit all your snot out, rather than like sit there and try to talk to somebody while you're blowing snot all over them. So, or yeah, choking on it and stuff like that and throwing it up. Why is it just so important for the germ or the pathogens to be like right there where you communicate with other people? And you see, this led me to believe that there is a sort of complex guided evolution, and it occurs in this pathogenic way, which are like basically when you get sick, you're downloading an update, or if you're sort of experiencing some sort of when you go to communicate with, like, it was basically beneficial to life in order to basically transmit pathogens between one another. And this was important for the development not just of the immune system, but of the entire person's genome. That possibly some of our say bacteria or organs and were not ever like developed, but were actually like cohabitating biological phenomena. In other words, like there could be some sort of, like, it could be that some of the subsystems, some of the cells in our bodies just happen to benefit. Like, we're really just this big combine of a bunch of cells that are all working together. And what's to say that there was a sort of genomic reason for all these cells? Why not they just boarded our body? And so there's a theory for tiered evolution, basically, which is like there's a very complex, abstract process going on in evolution, which is entirely being guided by a system which we are not able to detect, but is nevertheless occurring. So, it looks miraculous. In other words, like, let's say I did survive the heart attack gun. What if I was important and the pathogens, or the subsystems of my body did what it took to keep me alive or something? I really just, I really don't know. I really hate advertising myself as like a target. It's irritating, unfortunate. And here's me doing the me thing. I'm so sorry about that. I don't like doing that. But I so appreciate my audience. See, I'm already up on the hour. Let's see. Shucksful says, it's strange for society to have the same mindset week by week, month by month. Things didn't used to be this way. Interesting to see where this goes as time goes by. I totally agree with you. I will say I'm starting to actually become frustrated at this point, because anybody who has like any degree of, say, anticipation or plans or activities that they are engaging in, especially when you see the way things are heading, are starting to actually like feel insecure in their investments. And that could be very frustrating because you want to start being like, okay, it would be very useful right now if I had some sort of indication as to where even you wish I were going. Like, where do you even wish I was going? You know, which is probably irritating. So maybe I'm capturing the way a lot of conspiracy theorists feel right now. I don't like to negatively stimulate what I see, though, because what I see is ultimately interesting and good. You know, I don't want big bad things to happen. I don't want people to get scared. I don't want to be scared myself. And so, hmm, I guess what I'm worried about is like I know it's a huge house of cards. I know it's falling. I know, but obviously we're still on that house of cards. We have to be. I mean, there's plenty of people that all around me that are assuming that the Federal Reserve note is still going to be worth something, you know. And it's a little bit, the word is like disconcerting to see it happening, because you're ultimately, this is that thing where it's kind of like, do you really want it to be controlled, or do you want it to just be, do you just want to be left alone, you know? And I'm sorry, I'm getting all negative. I guess I just feel kind of weird because, see, I'm about to start my school year up, and there's all kinds of like questions of, do I really want to, say, pull out the loans? Do I want to even engage in the classes? Do I want to spend the time necessary to sort of figure out whether I want these classes to work with a certain work schedule? Is there going to be some sort of a war effort, or, you know, is there going to be a false flag? It's just that I think that's what I mean by it's irritating, because I'm kind of like, in some sense, we could have all at one time saw where things were heading and did what we could do to, say, counter it, and by that way we were able to essentially achieve stability. Now at this point it's weird because it's kind of like it's like the opposite now. It's kind of like stability. It's like you may even want the instability, or it's more stable in order to like not engage, or, you know, that's what I mean. But is it irritating in the sense that when you're somebody who knows what's going on, and yet that's the sort of issues you face because you've got all of these, say, you know, things that are coming up. But I would say that if anybody is out there who is, say, concerned about the future, the most appropriate thing to do at this point is to wake other people up. And the media is essentially either purposely or inadvertently doing that the best it can. This whole like Justin Bieber wearing the Guy Fawkes mask is a really good example of that. But we need a solution. because you see a lot of people are going to be very turned off because there simply is not, so people talk about like, like the libertarian thing needs a certain amount of PR because you can't go around talking about taking responsibility and personal liberties when we're still in that paradigm and it's not effective. So we need some sort of, because the bonding thing in my agenda is, 9/11 was a conspiracy. I know that, and that's essentially like a problem, and I don't like what was able to facilitate that. So I just want to take that down, basically. And if it coincides with the fact that there's laws being broken in order for that to occur, well then let's take care of that. I don't know. I hate leaving everyone hanging. But what I will do is take a look at the comments, and all I see is the last comment that I read by Shucksful, and I don't see any more comments, so I'm sorry that it like doesn't update the comments or whatever. All right, a very good night to everybody, and don't know if I'll see you tomorrow, but I might see you the next day.